The 80s had the General. The 90s had John Gilligan. In the noughties, it was the reign of Martin Marlowe Hyland. His was a familiar path with success and power, and then the recklessness. He had to go, because with him, an innocent young man doing an honest day's work died. Crime World presents Caught in the Crossfire, the unsolved murders of coke kingpin Marlowe Hyland and innocent Anthony Campbell. Coming May 21st. We're back talking about the Kinahans, particularly Daniel Kinahan and his wife, Caoimhe Robinson. I don't know what you've heard, but I've heard from a few people that Kinahan is expecting to come home to jail and is sort of, is basically handing down succession rights and has identified an underling in the grouping that he can hand over the reins of everything and is kind of, ready and waiting to join his pals here in Ireland in prison. But what I believe and what my sort of, my most informed sources say is that he is far too arrogant to believe that at all, that he believes he's too well connected between the United Arab Emirates, Russia and Iran to ever be sent home here, to ever come back to Ireland and to ever spend a day in prison. Yeah. What we do know is that he is certainly shoring up his wealth since the sanctions. He is definitely trying to move it probably into cryptocurrency or somewhere safe, or maybe into territories that he believes he's safe in.
Look, a lot of this has come out, of course, this week because there's been a data leak from Dubai, mostly focused on the property register system over there. And what you see is, I suppose you see two things. You see, for the first time, since they left, never in Europe really, in the last 2 decades have they put their name to anything, though they own multiple properties across Spain, and we saw in Ireland even in when properties have been seized that they owned, even though their names weren't near it. But in Dubai, Daniel Kinahan, certainly through his wife, felt comfortable putting his name on stuff. So this leak shows that that's the case, but it also shows that despite the sanctions, the global publicity, the the fact that they're wanted people by the US, that those sanctions, while the Dubai authorities have said they've frozen bank accounts, you can see how sort of broadly ineffective that is with their visible registered wealth, let alone all of the other wealth that it will be much more subtly dealt with and, beyond their reach. Because you can see Caoimhe Robinson, her name is associated with at least 4 properties currently.
And it's not rocket science, in fairness, for anybody to understand that where Caoimhe Robinson's name is there because of Daniel Kinahan. Caoimhe Robinson probably wasn't a she had a property portfolio here. Yeah. She didn't appear to have assets when she flew to Dubai to join Daniel Kinahan and marry him. She had a previous relationship with another very well-known drug dealer who was shot outside her house. Yeah. And at which point the Criminal Assets Bureau took whatever he had here. Yeah. So I'm not saying the woman was penniless. I don't know that about her. But certainly having these 4 properties, and in particular a 20,000 square foot villa in her name, is money that has to surely be coming through the Kinahan organisation.
Absolutely. Look, I mean, I don't think you're not saying anything that's unreasonable there. I mean, obviously, they're married, so their assets are shared anyway. Yeah. They're public assets. So I mean, you can see these property purchases and sales are still going on. Obviously, the Dubai officials put out this very strong statement in the aftermath of the sanctions. We've frozen everything to do with them, but you can see then that that freezing clearly didn't involve her accounts,
no,
which doesn't make any
sense.
It doesn't make any sense. And then, that's only the visible wealth that they felt comfortable enough to actually register and pay through bank accounts and all of that. Obviously,
it's funny that bit actually when you talk about that, the sanctions, because the sanctions. So Johnny Morrissey was also sanctioned, and Nero Vodka, which was his company, which was actually the CEO of that was his wife, Nicola Morrissey.
Yeah.
Now, she wasn't sanctioned, even though she held control of the company that was sanctioned and obviously was married. Her and Johnny Morrissey married at a lavish ceremony in Scotland at a castle many years ago.
Yeah.
They are officially married in the same way as Caoimhe Robinson is officially married to Daniel Kinahan. Surely a couple come as a unit when it comes to sanctioning.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I mean, that's the US government. They take, I think in part, they take these stances knowing that they're not going to be effective on underworld figures, but they take it almost as a moral position that they're going to take, and they're making a clear blame, and also, you know, they're putting pressure on governments across the world not to deal with these people as sanctioned entities. But you can see in Caoimhe Robinson, and it's great, these leaks, they're done with this international consortium of journalists, and the Irish Times were part of it over here. But you can see, for example, there's this one villa, it's 20,500 square feet. There's a picture of it, we have it up on SundayWorld.com at the moment, a big, massive thing. It's unfinished actually when that photo was taken, and it's described as being near Zayed University in Dubai, where it's, you know, one of the most prestigious real estate locations as well. And then there's also 4 other properties that are mentioned in connection with Caoimhe Robinson.
Before you move on to any of them, let's just consider that for a second though.
Yeah.
20,569 square foot.
Right, okay, go on. Thanks, sorry.
So an average home is about 800 to 1,200 square feet.
Yeah.
3-bed, semi-detached house.
Yeah.
An apartment is probably that little bit on the end of the 20,500, 600 square foot. Is it 1-bed apartment is about that?
Something like that.
2 beds, about 800 square foot, just to give people kind of an idea. This is 20 times that.
Yes. So, I mean,
20 times the average home. It has lifts in it.
Yeah.
Marble flooring, which of course is lovely and cool to the touch in a country like the United Arab Emirates, where temperatures can reach up to 50 degrees. Real marble is the only bit that's cool to the touch. It's the only product, I think, on earth that is cold, despite.
Right.
So it's a very luxurious thing to have. It's like having, you know, very expensive carpets here.
And obviously it has to be imported and all of that. Like marble is not commonly lying around in that way. Like,
and 20,000 square foot villa covered in it, presumably the walls as well.
Yeah.
Lifts inside it, swimming pools inside and out.
Yeah. Yeah,
I mean, that's a palace.
That's a palace, and I mean, you're looking at Dubai, which is, you know, it's literally the most expensive real estate location. I mean, even surpassing Dublin, which is quite an achievement in the modern world. So they have this money, and they're openly buying homes. There's the other properties. There's a couple that were in her name that we've known about before. One in the Elite Residence skyscraper and one in the El Mesk Tower. But some of the other ones we're hearing about now is this other one in the Parkway Vistas in the Emirate Hills. And that seems to have been seized for auction at one stage in 2023. But see,
that's the one now with the marble floors that I was...
No, I think the other one has well, that could be the one with the marble. Yeah, I think they actually both do, in fairness, yeah. So we don't see a picture of that specific home, but if you can see it's in a kind of an estate, maybe not a large number of houses, you know, 10, 20 homes, you know, they all have this look the exact same, but they're absolutely huge. They're on the edge of this sort of, I don't even know how they managed to have these parks in Dubai, but presumably through, you know, those are even hugely expensive to maintain. Like really beautiful locations. Obviously,
because of the water?
Well, because of the water and the fact that they're not grown up naturally. So, and then obviously we've talked about the Elite Residence skyscraper, but you know, those that is again overlooking the Bay Area in Dubai, which is literally the most sort of exclusive location you can get. And all of those 2 apartments are in buildings with like gyms, saunas, 24-hour security. I think there's creches, all of that sort of stuff. So
what's come out really is that since the sanctions, Caoimhe Robinson has been selling properties.
Yes.
So the I think one of the properties they might have made, it sold for 6 million and they bought it for a fraction of that. Maybe
I think
one. So they've been making money basically.
Yeah.
She has been putting these houses on the market and...
they seem to have bought one of them for 6 million. I presume that's dollars, and sold it then for $11.2 million.
Yeah. So they've made 6 million on that one alone. So, well, what that would tell us would probably be, and I'm sure that this is only a snapshot into what they have, because not everything is going to be put in one name. So, there's a vast associates and a lot of family out there. And traditionally, when people are in organised crime or trying to hide assets, they will put them in family members' names and people that they trust and all the rest of it. So we're only probably getting a little tiny amount of what's going on. But it would show us that, whatever about a confidence in Daniel Kinahan that he's not going to be sent back by the United Arab Emirates, that Iran will step in or that Russia will step in to help him, as he has been working as a fixer for those two regimes. I think it shows us that he's certainly shoring up his money and he's wanting to get it out of the reach of absolutely anybody. Is he trusting the Emirates?
Well,
or does he want to spread it a little bit? I mean, we've been told as well that he has been, over the past couple of years, selling up quite a lot of property in Spain. He needs to get his assets out of Spain.
Yeah, I think
he hasn't already got out.
Yeah, I think in Spain there was huge amounts of investments, and I don't think anybody will ever get to the, may never find out exactly what they owned and how much they own, but people do know that they owned an awful lot. They obviously kept a very strong footprint there and probably still do to an extent. But I think a lot of that has been sold up. I think Daniel Kinahan will look at the Dubai situation and believe, even if he is arrested, then he will have a good long period of time if he is to be extradited. If you look at it has been different for a number of different criminal figures from Europe who have been picked up there, but you may believe that he'll like Eden Gassonin and some of the other super cartel figures, that he may have a period of time where he might get out on bail, that he might have, because he has such a deep roots within the country, that he may believe that he could fight it successfully. And I think he would, he may be in with a shout with that, But I think if you look at this, Dubai Uncovered is the kind of the expose. What you get is, I remember the first of these a couple of years ago, and I think the Kinahans were like almost as an afterthought to this is a big international journalistic operation, huge, across the world, and they were really focused on sort of Russian expat kind of criminal, political figures. And you see even in their publicity for this one, how prominent the Kinahans were. They just, just that, like they are nearly the selling point. And this isn't for the Sunday World, obviously.
Globally.
This is globally.
Yes.
The Kinahans
have... This is the thing. And there you have Caoimhe Robinson, and she is out front and central in it, isn't she? I mean, she is the face of this story.
She is the face of, and that's not what I mean, is that's not just for the Sunday World. Like, she is the face of the story for this huge international consortium of journalists, really like kind of high-end contacts. And
all the various media organisations who've run this story.
And that must put are you allowed to say put the shits up the Kinahans?
Put the shits up her. I mean, it would put the shits up me if I was her. And also I wonder how she feels about those same old Facebook photographs that we used to use back in the day.
Well, we still do.
We still do, because we've now obviously updated photographs. Now, maybe that's quite a happy thing for a woman, but I mean, she is becoming as recognisable a face nearly as her husband Daniel Kinahan, because even when they did marry initially in 2017 in the Burj Al Arab, I think she was taking a back seat, even though she was the bride. Yeah. People were more interested in the fact that Daniel Kinahan was getting married and had brought together this so-called European super cartel. He was having a kind of a crime summit as well as a wedding. And, obviously the Burj Al Arab maybe took prominence because of the hotel that it was in, etc. But she seemed to manage to stay in the background. But more and more really, as these big investigations, particularly into the money and the property, come to the fore, we're finding her being the face of the Kinahan
And of course it is. Well, of course. I mean, it is a pretty face, and that always helps newspapers. But it does help. You see, this is I think a problem for them, because of their real lack of anonymity, because of their sort of infamy. I mean, they've now been the subject of not just, Crime World in Ireland, which they could always dismiss, but the Financial Times doing podcasts on them, the BBC Panorama, obviously this latest hack. And it gets to a point where in Dubai, which has, Dubai obviously need to stay in good stead with other other countries, and this sort of bad publicity coming at them again and again, I think that will affect Daniel's ability to just hunker down and see it off. Now,
I wonder, Caoimhe Robinson, does she go to the school gates? Does she have to deal with the other mothers? Does she have any normality left in her life? Does she invite kids on play dates to her house, wherever they're living? And is this a bit bloody embarrassing?
I don't know. I mean, what sort of circles do you move in, I suppose? I don't know if you ever saw, obviously you've seen Goodfellas, where, she talks about, meeting the other wives, the character who marries Ray Liotta, and she talks, and they're just in this inner little bubble where they all grew up with each other. They all speak the same. They've all known each other since childhood. They all know each other's families. Mm-hmm. So we don't know if it's like that for her in Dubai. But any anonymity or deniability that surrounded Daniel Kinahan, and he really tried to embrace that in terms of the boxing. Like, all of that is now gone. They've become, incredibly famous, I think it is, isn't it? They've become probably...
They have, and, bringing the wives with them. And you'd wonder, going forward, can the likes of Caoimhe Robinson slip into Ireland anymore after this? Can she make her way, alone? Because she's not going to bring Daniel with her back to Ireland, I can tell you. But if she wants to go visit her family back here, and she has a lot of family and friends in Ireland, can she realistically walk through the airport without being recognised, without being known?
But I don't think she could land in her local area in North Dublin, where she's from, and not be spotted and recognised, and that can't be put out. I mean, if you're talking about to go back to the contingency planning, like, do people like Daniel Kinahan operate like that? I suppose he'll have to think that extradition is a strong possibility, and what is the best thing to do in those circumstances, I think, is to have an organisation still in place in Dubai, even if he's gone, because people like him, if they end up in prison without that organisation on the outside, prison can become a really, really difficult place to be, because they won't have access to money or have that influence again. And you saw that with in much lesser extent, somebody like John Gilligan, who, when he initially went into prison, was a big shot in there. He had people outside, he had access to money, and that really kept him at the kind of top of the food chain for the decade or whatever that he spent in there, decade or more. But once he fell down the gangland ladder, he was pushed around and treated badly in there, because they need that outside organisation.
I wonder, do these people miss anything about home?
I'm sure they do. I'm sure they do.
I know it's cold and it's rainy, and it's obviously not as life isn't as luxurious maybe, and all the rest of it. But no matter where you are in the world, home is still somewhere that your heart remains usually.
Yeah. And I mean, it's absolutely, and it's
being able to drop over to your mother's for a cup of tea, or just sit down with friends, or even feel the soft rain on your face when you've been in that incredible heat for so long. I wonder, is it something that they consider they've had to give up for the sake of? Yeah,
I mean, I think it is. It definitely will be something there, and just like, the family situation, I think, is the thing that people always find hardest in any of those circumstances, whether it's through criminality or anything else that people have to leave the country. The bonds of family are strained by it. And, like, all of that money, is it safe as well, wherever they can put it,
Well, I wouldn't trust any of those places, to be honest with you. I mean, if you're in a position that you're putting your trust into the Russians, the Iranians, or
even the Dubai
Emiratis,
people in the
I mean, I don't know. Like, I just think when the time comes, they will cut their ties with them and they won't look back. And I'd say any cash, money, assets that's there just goes into a slush pot.
Yeah.
And they're certainly not going to be handed them back, which is why I wonder, you know, why there's movement in properties. Why is Caoimhe Robinson selling these properties? Are they squirreling or attempting to squirrel cash reserves or things away in other territories outside that? I mean, what do you do in their position? You can't put it in America. You can't put it into Europe. You need to take it all out and do what? Bring it with you into those territories?
No, I think that's it. I mean, I think you saw Christy Kinahan in recent years try and diversify where their money went. And a lot of the focus of that were places like Zimbabwe. Zimbabwe would be one of the few countries in the world that has a very particular struggles with the West, you know. So the problem with those places as well is that, you know, you don't have the security of putting it in a bank and knowing everything is going to be okay, and there's stability and regularity in the country. You're investing money in places where, but I mean, Zimbabwe was an interesting one, wasn't it? I mean,
sure was.
I mean, if you looked at, he was visiting these locations, and obviously Zimbabwe would have been a former colonial country, and there's still huge wealth there.
I mean, somewhere they could live.
Somewhere they could live.
I don't think it would be as harsh.
No, Zimbabwe is an absolutely beautiful country, but it's been well. I mean, Zimbabwe is a beautiful country, but politically unstable. And Iran and Russia, you could say the same about. I mean, Russia, beautiful country, but you know, you don't have that security. But I think there was an attempt by Christy Kinahan Senior certainly to build up a getaway.
I think it's got to be like, and she says just back from Vegas and the casinos there, but it's got to be like having a load of money and having to do something with it, and you're on a roulette table.
Yeah.
So what you try and do is you spread it. As much as you can.
Exactly.
So as you can win some of it back. You're not expecting, you know, it all to come in on one number.
Yeah.
But you'll spread it around so as you can.
Yeah, if you do, if one of them goes down, you get a bit of success elsewhere.
Exactly.
I mean, and then there's the great mystery of the things that we don't understand. I mean, we don't even fully understand what cryptocurrency is, let alone how you store it or where you.
Funny, I've just been talking about that before he came in with Jeff White, and either his interview has already gone up or will be going up, you know, close to this. But he has done a book about money laundering, and cryptocurrency is the way forward, and it's the easiest way for them to launder, and it's the safest way for them to launder.
Is. I mean, it's basically undetectable, isn't it?
Yeah, and it seems to be able to sit there, like floating.
It floats there. I mean, it's very difficult to seize without
seconds.
Yeah. However, again, the value can fall and rise of cryptocurrency in a huge amount.
I'm saying it's pretty much safe now
with Bitcoin.
Yeah,
but So look, I mean, maybe so. I mean, again, so there'd be all of those sort of imponderables.
Well, safe, you know what I mean?
Exactly.
Anything can collapse, but yeah. Again, I suppose you're not going to put all your money in that. You're not going to put all your money in property. You're not going to put it all. You're spreading. The richer you are, the bigger the spread of your investment has to be. Low risk, medium risk, and high risk.
Yeah.
Investments, and that's probably what they're doing, and they're constantly moving money, and
the money is sloshing around there, and you can see it in Dubai. Huge money, huge, you know, beautiful properties in the most luxurious parts of the world. And you know, it's funny because we just published a couple of stories there about cab hearings during the week, written by Eamon Dillon, and you just see it's such a whole other level to the guys being targeted in cab. You know, there was a criminal there from Longford, and they're seizing, you know, a couple of Rolexes worth 20,000 and a property and a car. Yeah, like not even, you know, and these are obviously sort of mid-level, at least, criminal figures in Ireland. And it just scales up so massively and immensely on a whole other level when you reach to this guy. But it's only like 10 people or something, isn't it?
It's still the same, because what you're seeing more and more here in Ireland through the cab cases is the women who have been used for years to launder the funds, who were never really touched, and they were always sort of left to explain it away, that they didn't know where the money came from and everything. Now they're being jailed in their droves. They're coming before the courts on criminal charges. They're being sort of named and shamed in the Criminal Assets Bureau cases. And it's all the same thing. I mean, here we have this massive big investigation into the Kinahan's property empire, and the only face I'm seeing in any of the stories is Caoimhe Robinson.
Yeah, and of course, if you remember, not so long ago, she would be on Twitter, I think in particular, under her own name, putting up pictures of her out with her friends. I mean, all of that is a whole other world now again, you know.
Complaining to the press ombudsman that
we're linked her to
Daniel Kinahan, and therefore put her life in danger.
Yeah.
Anyway.
She's safe over in Dubai now.
No denying it now, is there?
There's not. No, there's not. I don't think so.
Right.
The Financial Times and everybody has caught up with your gutter journalism finally.
Okay, now.
Thanks, Nicola.
I'm Nicola Tallant, and you're watching Crime World, a podcast about criminals, drugs and the underworld in Ireland and across the globe. Make sure you subscribe to our channel and turn on notifications so you can be the first to watch all our latest episodes. You can also listen wherever you get your podcasts.